Good day everyone and welcome to day 288, turn 288 of your daily Civ 7 news update. We have a lot to get through today, so strap in, starting with Dev Diary number 3, titled Managing Your Empire. This one was written by Edward Zhang, the economics feature lead for Civ 7. He describes a few of the goals they're aiming for with Civ 7's design, namely around managing cities and towns. Ed says it'll bring one of the biggest shifts in the franchise's history. Our goal was to streamline gameplay, tone down complexity, and reduce the overwhelming micromanagement that often dominates the later stages of previous Civ titles. This all sounds fantastic to me, so let's get into it. He talks here a bit about the 4X genre, what it stands for, eventually saying that it boils down to every Civ player should feel like the ruler of an empire, making important choices, not a servant tied down to micromanagement duties. That sounds good to me. So one big change noted here is that apart from your first settler, which they're calling your founder unit, settlers can only create towns, which you have to spend gold to upgrade into cities if you so choose. We've gone over a fair bit of this before, so I won't get bogged down in the details, but to recap, towns don't have a production queue per se. They convert all of their production into gold and offer various support roles for your empire. Quite similar to something like puppeted cities from Civ 5, which is fantastic. Puppeted cities are probably the thing I miss the most in Civ 6. Moving forwards, we have this new graphic that showcases all the town focuses you can choose. Interestingly, we can see here that some of these are age-gated. So the factory town, for example, can only be chosen in the modern age. Pause the video here if you want to have a look at the rest of these, because we are going to keep moving. Ed says here that their goal was to make expansion more strategic and less overwhelming. In passive games, each new city added something more to manage. By the late game, the sheer number of cities and decisions could lead to a loss of focus and a lot of busy work. Love every word of this, a problem any Civ 6 player will probably agree with. This was definitely a big factor, always holding me back personally from going for a domination victory. The idea of having to manage every city I conquered was always just not fun to me. While raising them just felt even worse. So this is great stuff. Love towns. He then gets into a little bit about tall versus wide here. So in Civ 7, tall is going to be defined as having more focus on towns, supporting a few massive cities, while wide will be more cities doing their own thing with less towns overall. Now, disclaimer, I've always enjoyed the wide playstyle a lot more, so I see that as a big reason why I like Civ 6 so much. I love painting them out my colour. But tall players, can you chime in here? I have this funny feeling that this idea that the tall playstyle in Civ 7, still having a ton of land mass, but it's mainly towns that you don't have to directly control, doesn't really satisfy the power fantasy of having, say, 4 core cities that are just these massive powerhouses. Considering you're still going to be pumping out settlers, worrying about defending your town's borders. As I said, this isn't really my cup of tea, so if you're a tall player, please let me know your thoughts on this, because I feel like what the devs are calling tall in Civ 7 is just wide with a different coat of paint. Could be wrong though, let me know what you think. On to the next update here, a quick reminder about builders in Civ 7, the reminder being that they don't exist anymore. As you generate food, this grows your population, as it always has, and as your population, you get a new one. You use that to get new tiles and add improvements, or assign specialists. But we all know this, right? So keep moving forward. The settlement cap is a thing, a soft limit on the number of cities and towns you can have in your empire, happiness penalties if you go over. And what is happiness, I hear you ask? Similar to what it's always been really, like amenities. Too little happiness in your cities and you face reduced yields, or excess happiness supports specialists and maintains buildings. Interestingly, your global happiness does contribute to triggering celebrations, which they call here special events that provide powerful buffs and slots for traditions and social policies. I don't think we've gotten much info on celebrations yet, so I'll be keen to learn a bit more about that. We get a little word here on what they call management through the ages, what stays versus what decays, talking about how not all of your constructs will stay the same throughout the ages. So warehouse buildings, unique buildings and improvements and wonders, they will retain their effects and continue to provide bonuses throughout the whole game, regardless of age. These are what they call ageless buildings. However, other buildings and improvements, and it sounds like it's going to be most of them, eventually become outdated, losing their effects and adjacency bonuses, and they keep only their base yields. this is going to, what they say, prompt you to overbuild and evolve your empire over time. I'll be interested to see how this one feels and how it's received in practice, because I think losing a lot of the progress you've made and all these buildings that you've built at the start of every age is going to feel a little crushing, a little like a massive setback when you're actually playing it. I know this ties in well into the crises system, and they want every age to sort of feel like a bit of a fresh start and as a rubber banding mechanic. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how this one feels in practice, because people do not like losing progress, generally speaking. So we'll have to wait and see. Onto the key gameplay mechanics section here. Districts overhauled. So there are some pretty massive changes here, really, from Civ 6. So there are no more specific districts, like campuses for science, theatre squares for cultures and all that. Now when you place a building down on a tile, that is automatically established as an urban district. Each urban district tile has 2 building slots that can hold any building. So what this means in practice is that if you have a spare tile and you want to erect some buildings, you can, if you want, pop down a library, and then on that same district, whack it an amphitheatre. I don't even know if amphitheatres are a thing in Civ 7, but you get the idea. The gloves are way off here for building restrictions. Similarly, they outright say here there are no theming bonuses for grouping buildings together, and districts have to be placed adjacent to another district, starting from your city centre, so you always have to grow outwards. However, not all is lost when it comes to city planning. Adjacency bonuses do make a return in Civ 7, which is a big win if you ask me, but as you would expect, given what I've just said, the adjacency is now granted to buildings and not the districts themselves. So it's the library that gets the mountain adjacency rather than the campus, for example. They also mention that specialists can enhance these adjacency bonuses significantly, and they've integrated all the calculations into the UI directly. Maybe they got the better map tax guy on board to do that. So hey, shout out to that legend. I also just wanted to stop for a sec and talk about this screenshot. I don't want to beat this dead horse too much, but taking a look at this in-game picture with yields turned on, it becomes really apparent how not good these yield icons are. So this comes down to personal preference, of course, but I think the ones here that absolutely need to be changed are the happiness and the gold icons. These look almost indistinguishable when you have more than 5 of that yield, because the number covers up the middle of it. They both really just look like yellow and orangey circles, which is not helpful at a glance. Moving on, they briefly mention unique quarters. If you build 2 Civ-specific buildings on the same tile, you'll get a unique little visual effect on that tile. This castle moat looking thing here looks really cool. And they can offer substantial benefits depending on your strategy and terrain layout. Fantastic little touch. Moving on, they talk here about warehouse buildings. These are the Antiquity Age warehouses in this screenshot. These appear to be ways to essentially specialise your cities and towns more in a certain direction. So granaries and fishing quays for food, or saw pits and brickyards for production, for example. I guess you could think of these as similar to water mills from Civ 6. Probably not too powerful on their own, but depending on the terrain, can massively enhance the yields you get from your surroundings. So I like these. I think they're a great idea. I think cities should generally be more specialised, and you really should have to take into account your surroundings when deciding on how to progress. So big fan of that. And lastly, we have wonders. So wonders will continue to occupy a full tile, and interestingly, they also provide adjacency bonuses to every surrounding building. Ed says here that one of the more frustrating experiences in previous Civ games was losing out on a wonder just before completing it. If you have advisor warnings on in Civ 7, they will now notify you if a wonder you're building is already being constructed by another player you've met, helping you plan accordingly and avoid those unpleasant surprises. So this did already exist in Civ 6 in the form of gossip, as well as just visually being able to see the wonder getting built if you had scouted that tile. So I kind of hope they didn't oversimplify this too much. I hope you're only notified of this through your advisors if you've scouted out the tile that the wonder is being built on. So yeah, I do hope there are some restrictions on this. I think the Civ 6 system worked great as it stands. I guess we'll see exactly what the implementation will be like. And that's it really. Pretty lengthy article with a lot of good detail in there. For my final piece of news, I should mention that in an hour or so after this video goes live, Firaxis will be hosting a live stream. They'll be showcasing the Exploration Age, focusing on the map expansion mechanic, religion, and naval battles. I'm jealous of all of you who will be watching this live. I'll be asleep for that one, but enjoy. And I'll of course cover the highlights in tomorrow's news update, so stay tuned. I'll see you all tomorrow, and until then, thanks for watching. P.S. I hope you enjoyed the dark mode experience on this video. Let me know if you want to keep that in future. I think it's much easier to look at, so you're welcome.